Very, very good day. My name is Dr. Ayanna Miller. I am a doctor of physical therapy and a certified gender intelligence coach. I am also a certified stroke rehabilitation professional. My job is to help people become more aware of how they can live longer lives without suffering as much, hence their wellness. As we know, humanity is rife with all kinds of technology and modern advances that allow us to live longer. Whereas our parents and grandparents and our foreparents in general lived to maybe 40s, 50s. Back in the day, as they say, those ages were considered to be old. Well, now people are living until 80s, 90s, even to centenarian ages, 100 plus. And I'm finding that just living an everyday life lends to people suffering. For example, some of the intake that we consume, whether it be through things that we eat, whether it be through things that we drink, whether it be through things that we put on our skin, cause long-term disease that leads to disability. Well, that ends up making a person suffer. So my job is to help a person understand how they can prevent the suffering part that comes with long-term, really to prevent the disease in the first place that leads to the long-term disease and ultimate disability and maybe even early death. So in terms of what people are doing to become ill and to then suffer, we're living everyday lives that are sedentary in some cases. We're consuming things that are inflammatory or toxic, and we're not even aware of it. So the first part of helping a person to make a shift from the lifestyle that lends to disease that ultimately ends up in disability or disease is to make them aware, to educate the consumer, educate the community as to how just an everyday normal lifestyle of consuming things that are inflammatory or toxic could be detrimental to their health and lead to suffering because of disease and disability. If I had the opportunity to tell the consumer, the audience, the community, if you would, one thing that they could do to enhance their quality of life, it would be to recall what life was like before the industrial age. In other words, there was a time when man didn't have all of the options that we have today. We didn't have all of the options in transportation. So we did a lot more walking. We did a lot more physical activity. We didn't have microwaves or packaged foods. So we couldn't just run to the store, grab something off the shelf and pop it in a microwave. I would say recall what life used to be like, or learn what life used to be like prior to the industrial age, and try your best to not be perfect, but to be better, to make a gradual shift towards what life used to be like prior to the industrial age. What do I mean by this? Well, if you can, get as close to nature with eating foods that are not genetically modified, that are made without chemicals and pesticides and additional hormones. Try your best to reduce the amount of chemicals that you intake. That means lotions on the skin. These are chemicals. If you want to moisturize your skin, if you don't put it in your mouth, don't put it on your skin. You can put olive oil on your skin. Believe it or not, you can even put coconut oil on your skin. You can put walnut oil on your skin. You can put avocado oil on your skin. These are wonderful emollients that will give you moisture. In addition to that, you don't have to do away with all of your favorite foods, but I would simply say be very cautious to remember, if it's not pH balanced, try to reduce the amount of intake. For example, maybe you like carrots. Well, carrots don't have a seed. Carrots are not pH balanced. What can you substitute with that might be pH balanced? Maybe you like beans. Well, certain beans are very inflammatory because they too are not pH balanced, whereas there are those that are. Garbanzo beans. What is the takeaway here? Without going through an entire list of produce that may be on the grocer's shelf, the key is to remember, try to consume produce that is pH balanced. And I say produce because ultimately you want to center your intake around things that come from the earth naturally, things that are not genetically modified, things that were not created on a farm or a lab, things that naturally came from the earth without human tampering. These are pH balanced items that will assimilate with your chemistry, with your DNA, and they will not cause inflammation. Inflammation is going to be the precursor to long-term disability and disease. Finally, I would like for the community to know, I would like for the audience to know, detoxification is critical. Why do I say that? Well, because again, you might remember me saying, we're not making a shift towards being perfect. We're making a shift towards being better. In other words, you may like potato chips. I love potato chips. In fact, I love cheese as well. These are not pH balanced foods. They are not nutritious. They are edible, but they don't represent nutrition. So this is important to realize, because if you do consume something that's your favorite or that's tasty, and it may not be the best for you, it may not be pH balanced, then you're going to need to detoxify that item from your system. Again, as a reminder, you want to detoxify toxins from your system because you want to avoid inflammation. You want to avoid inflammation so that you can reduce your chances of developing disease. You don't want disease because you're trying to minimize the chance of suffering. And again, this is what life was like prior to the industrial age. Man ate from the earth. There was not a lot of preservation through chemicals that were being placed on foods. And when I say foods, I'm really referring to produce. There was not a lot of fertilization. There was not a lot of pesticides. Man was very, very physically active with harvesting his food, so to speak. Man was very involved in creating, or I don't want to use the word creating because I don't want to give the wrong impression. Creating could be interpreted as meaning modifying. And I'm not trying to say modifying, but what I am saying, if you can think of the analogy of sowing and reaping, man used to be very, very active with sowing or planting and then harvesting or reaping. And that gave a twofold double hitter where humans were eating things that were natural, that were pH balanced, that were not modified, that were non-toxic. And then they were active and physically able to go out and reap those things from the earth. And that was what allowed humanity to be much stronger and much more active. So I'm just trying to remind you, my dear audience, those who are listening, if we can make the shift towards that type of lifestyle, I think that will go a long way with reducing the incidences of developing disease that ultimately leads to disability and ultimately leads to suffering. Well, we're doing what's called telehealth for those who have not heard about it. In other words, we're doing online screenings through Zoom meetings. Individuals are urged to make an appointment for a physical health screening. And once they make the appointment, they will get a link where they can join me via Zoom for a interactive physical health screening. During the screening, we take a look at the person's lifestyle. We take a look at medications that they may be using. We take a look at their intake, what's typical for them. And we also take a look at physical manifestations. All of this can be done via Zoom. And with that, we're able to customize and give a person a prescription, if you will, for how they can begin to make a shift based on their personal physical goals and to suffer less, to live a better quality of life, to be a more healthy person. And not only that, to take certain data that we can work on creating together to their primary care physician, to their healthcare practitioner. They may be working with a nurse practitioner or some other provider. They can take the data that we've generated together and say, hey, this is where I am. This is what I've been doing. And we work as a team to help that person have a better quality of life. If you'd like to reach out, you can simply send an email to neuro-wellness pop-up@gmail.com. That's Neuro, Neuro, Wellness, WELLNESS, Pop Up, POPUP, at gmail.com. You can also reach me via YouTube at Dr. Ayanna or Neuro-Wellness Pop-Up.